It doesn't look like they take kindly to visitors after hours. It's not like I'm going to steal dust and rubble. Just a quick peek.
In my 19th year, on my own initiative and expense, I raised an...
What's that over there?
That helmet you see? It's yours to use. Wear it and join me on a journey.
I built the Temple of Mars Ultor on private ground, and the Forum of August...
As a guard, life was rather uneventful at most times. Not as grandiose as most would expect. Keeping order during hearings, vetting anyone who sought to enter, and cleaning up. That was how a guard spent most of his time on duty, with only a few exceptions.
Where am I? Is this?
I've brought you to the Temple of Mars the Avenger. I often saw Augustus walking into this part of the Forum. Never sure for what, but it always looked like he was contemplating something. It must have weighed heavily on his shoulders, being the successor to the murdered Caesar. I guess he derived inspiration from being surrounded by icons of his mortal and divine ancestors. This temple is dedicated to Mars. There are also another 4 important figures represented here: Fortune, Rome, Palatine, and Tiber.
I drove the men who slaughtered my father into exile with a legal order, punishing them for their crime. And afterwards, when they waged war on the state, I defeated them in 2 battles. These statues of victory represent that.
The Temple of Mars was built in fulfillment of a vow made before the Battle of Philippi, undertaken by Augustus to avenge his father's murder. Augustus might have been a shrewd politician and a cunning war strategist, but he never neglected pious life. He placed a lot of weight on his spiritual beliefs and was convinced that Mars played a part in his successes. After Mark Antony helped Augustus avenge Caesar's death, I witnessed the pair's relationships. Unless you held a position in office, he erected a great number of public buildings. The most prestigious was a forum containing the Temple of Mars the Avenger. The reason for building a new forum was the rapid increase in population and the number of cases to be tried in the courts. So, a law was passed declaring that cases should be tried there and judges chosen at random. You must complete your duties for the night and have the forum ready at dawn when the day's activities begin.
I'm sure I can use this.
This tablet documents a dispute between a Roman and a foreigner. This sort of hearing was overseen by a magistrate known as Praetor Peregrinus. Pretty amazing, if you think about it. Centuries later, this is an invitation for someone named Publius.
With enough of these wax tablets, one might be able to reconstruct what the forum looked like. This tablet doesn't belong here. Best take it to the Eastern Archive.
Roman citizens would argue over matters of status, especially if they were... That doesn't belong there. Each wax tablet has a number on it corresponding to one of these cabinets. That marble tablet on the... There must have been a dispute about slaves happening today. Disputes over the trade of slaves are known as emptil venditio. Fiducia cum creditora were financial cases. Siblings clashing over inheritance, unpaid debts between business partners. These immigration issues date back to ancient Rome, and they happened all the time. Foreigners, known as peregrini. There, Now all the tables are clear for tomorrow's consultations. All documents are held in 2 archives. This, the Peregrinus Archive, and the Urban Archive, which you may have noticed is closed for construction at the moment. The Senator's Pallium is somewhere in here. Augustus saw a lot of what he was doing reflected in the story of Romulus. In their own ways, both were founders of Rome. Just as Augustus did with some of the other Summi Vidi, he also tried to link himself to Romulus. During public talks, Augustus frequently referred to him to align his intentions with those of this mythological founder. Here's a little curious fact for you. Oh, a doll. I can recall all sorts of attempts to influence them. That's the kind of collar that slaves used to wear. Perhaps a debt slave. People were not sent to prison. Romans simply paid fines, whilst foreigners were either exiled or instead female lawyers were not.
Better take the Senator's Pallium back to the guard post for safekeeping.
This door should be closed. Better go inside to check that nothing's missing.
I brought back war spoils totaling above 100 million sesterti during my exploits on foreign soil. I had everything consecrated before offering them up in the capital, as well as the temples of Julius, Apollo, and Vesta. I defeated our enemies in Spain, Gaul, and Dalmatia, and recovered military standards our former leaders had lost to them. The Parthians had hoarded spoils and standards of as many as 3 Roman armies. I compelled them to return them all. I also persuaded them to humbly seek out the friendship of the Roman people, which they did. Since then, I have had all standards placed on display in the temple of Mars Ultor. I was unwilling to take my colleague's place as priest when the people offered me to take vows as my father had done before me. I refused it. This changed, however, after several years, with my father's passing. I finally accepted to be ordained.
Temple-related matters are usually in the hands of priests, sacrifices, the cella, and the lot. But, as so happens, sometimes we're left to clean up the mess at night. What is this huge base doing here? Looks like it's a space meant to host something. It doesn't look like it's quite finished. There are tools still scattered around. Sharp. This space is where one of the most magnificent statues of Augustus will sit. It's a sizable statue, fashioned out of bronze, that depicts him in a chariot led by 4 horses. It will be magnificent when finished. Do you see those intricate decorations? All it takes to see how much Augustus's empire was flourishing is to look at all the exotic materials he was bringing back to Rome to build this forum. The city was not built in a manner deserving of the empire's grandeur. It was liable to inundations by the Tiber, as well as to fires. Under his administration, the improvements were such that he boasted that he founded it out of brick, but left it of marble. The city was not built in a manner deserving of the empire's grandeur. It was liable to inundations by the Tiber, as well as to fires. Under his administration, the improvements were such that he boasted that he founded it out of brick, but left it of marble. The statues that line the porticos of the Forum and tribunals are surely a work of art, aren't they? But there were a lot more than that. Augustus had this Hall of Fame designed with a clear intention in mind: to pay homage to all the mortal and divine kings and founders, the Summi Virdi, who played a part in building Rome. This wax tablet is an invitation such as those sent out to both the accuser and the accused. They must have met here today in front of this statue of Diana Lucifer. When out in the Forum, it was always easier to catch the preliminary phase of a trial rather than the trial itself. I was called in countless times to keep public order, while the contesting parties gave their testimonies to the praetor under a hanging decree. The tribunal needs rearranging before the night is over. These chairs are not placed here merely for the audience. Trials have jury panels, and a serious case could require up to 75 members in the jury. Chairs like this are where they sit. Looking at the state of this place, today's case must have been a particularly controversial one. This place is overrun by people every day. Don't let this mess surprise you. As vigils in the Forum, it's our duty to make this place ready for tomorrow's trials. This chair is where the praetor delivers his final verdicts.
I was high priest, augur, one of the 15 for the performance of rites, one of the 7 of the sacred feasts, brother of Arvis, fellow of Titus and Fetial.
Yes. In fact, Augustus was the head of state, army, and government.
These should be lit. I'm sure there's something I can use to light them somewhere around here.
The Senate enrolled me in its order by laudatory resolutions, when Gaius Pansa and Aulus Hirtius were consuls. They assigned me the place of a consul in the giving of opinions, and gave me the Imperium. At the time, Marcus Marcellus and Lucius Aruntius were consuls. The people and the Senate agreed to grant me total dictatorship, both when present and absent. I turned this offer down.
Augustus was not a god, but he wanted to be depicted as a genius, the protector of the Senate and the state. Can you see the resemblance between this statue and Augustus himself? Now, all the Empire uses our numbering system. Numbers are represented with 7 capital letters. I equals 1, V equals 5, X equals 10, L equals 50, C equals 100, D equals 500, and M equals 1000. If a letter is followed by one of equal or lesser value, the two values are added. If a letter is followed by one of greater value, the first is subtracted from the second. Use this knowledge to find where the tablets belong. The names on that sigillum, I've heard them somewhere before. Ah, yes, they were involved in a case of business fraud. I remember the preliminary hearing, held in front of the edictus. There was a lot of commotion. They probably dropped the ring when they rushed off to the tribunal. Now the senator could just come and pick it up. These senators always receive special treatment. Not everyone was treated equally in the eyes of the law. The poorer you were, the harsher the fines and lower the compensations. I've seen a good deal of people being almost thrown into ruin because of the tough calls by the praetors. I can't start to count the number of trials I saw held here during my duties. Civil and family disputes, from petty crimes to suspected murders, busted political conspiracies. Every time someone was summoned to attend a trial, it was recorded on a tablet. Look at it. It's a trial slated for today. It says that both parties are invited to meet right outside the tribunal of the Praetor Urbanus, and a magistrate well versed in Roman law, known as Ius Romanum, will oversee the hearing. The statue you see represents Mars together with Venus. Venus had a prominent position in Roman religion. When Augustus posthumously honoured his adoptive father, Caesar, by divining him, he wanted to establish his divine lineage as well, making him untouchable. One more thing he did was to establish connection with Venus through her son, the hero and descendant of Romulus and Remus, Aeneas. All seems to be as it should. Leave the temple and lock the door behind you. The Temple of Mars was built in fulfillment of a vow made during the War of Philippi, undertaken by Augustus to avenge his father Caesar's murder. He ordered that the Senate always assemble there to deliberate about wars and triumphs, that thence should be dispatched all the... When cases were too difficult or tricky, a preliminary hearing wasn't enough to settle them. That's when both parties involved were taken to either the Urbanus, if they were both Romans, and the Peregrinus, if one side was a foreigner. There, a praetor, as well as a jury, were called in. You have completed all that was required of you. I hope this encounter with history has given you new insight into Augustus, a truly...
No one will ever believe what's happened to me. One thing's for sure, I'll never trespass on any ruins again.